Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I am here today at the Rock Island Auction Company. I'm taking a look at some of the guns that are coming up for sale in their April of 2016 premiere auction, and they have a bunch of cool ones. Among them, this late 1920s German experimental prototype pistol. So at the very end of 1927, the German military had kind of resigned themselves to the fact that the Luger, while they really liked it, was too expensive of a pistol to make. And they had one of their Ordnance Department directors suggest that maybe we should start looking for some replacement. So a bunch of companies heard about this. There was kind of a proposal sent out. They had lots of cheap 32s, and some people argued that, you know, those 32s had done just fine in World War I, where they'd been used in very large numbers, and you know they're a heck of a lot cheaper than Lugers because they can just be simple blowback guns. Other people counter-argued that the 32, while it was okay as an emergency defensive pistol, it wasn't sufficiently powerful for real combat, and they really wanted a locked breech. Well, they wanted a 9mm Parabellum pistol, which usually meant a locked breech, which meant a relatively expensive gun to make. Now, around this time, a number of companies put together some prototypes, some potential pistols to sell to the German government, and one of those companies was Simson & Co. out of Suhl, S-I-M-S-O-N. Now Simson was in this interesting situation of being the one company that was allowed to continue making and refurbishing and working on Luger pistols under the Weimar government. So the German arms industry had been heavily restricted by the Treaty of Versailles, but it was recognized that they did need to have a military, and in particular, especially internal security, police, border guards, that sort of thing. And those guys all needed guns. So they were allowed as a nation to do some arms manufacture and repair. And the Simson company was the one chosen to do that work on Lugers. So Simson was already making pistols, and they figured, hey, this is a good opportunity to, you know, step up from this work of just kind of maintaining the current issue pistol to, well, hey, if we can design the replacement for it, we'll get a contract for a whole bunch of pistols, and it'll be a great thing for the business. So they developed this experimental 9mm pistol. They used just a slightly modified Luger magazine in it, so it's got the same grip angle as a Luger, but what they did was make it straight blowback. So it's got a pretty heavy slide and a fairly hefty recoil spring, and the idea was this would be a relatively inexpensive pistol to make, but it's in 9mm Luger, 9 Parabellum, which is what the government wanted. A little bit of testing was done on this. I don't have any details of the actual testing results because ultimately, within just about a year, the Ordnance Department kind of changed its mind and decided we got a lot of other stuff going on. We're not going to allocate any money to new pistols. In particular, they were actually looking at carbines and submachine guns, which, you know, that's probably the right decision. Those are a lot more valuable and will have a lot more impact on, you know, the performance of the military than just the sidearm. So this has some really cool features to it, despite the fact that it was dropped like a hot potato pretty quickly. So why don't I bring the camera back here and let's disassemble this and take a look at it. I figured we should probably start with a little comparison to a Luger, since that's what this Simson pistol was hoping to replace. You'll see that the grip angle is basically the same. That's about the extent of the similarities, really. The magazines are very, very close. We'll take a closer look at those in a moment. The Simson is definitely a heavier gun. It is a straight blowback, so there's a lot more mass in the slide. Anyway, the markings here, we have two different markings to take a look at. One of them is this really gorgeous Simson and Suhl Waffenfabriken marking on the side, the company logo. That's gorgeous inscription there. And then we have one other bit. This is the safety lever, and it's on fire. When I turn it to safe, we have the inscription Sicher, or something like that. It stands for safe. So you can see that this locks the slide in position, and it also locks the trigger. Our extractor is right up here on the top of the slide. Our magazine catch is a heel release back here. Push up, pull the magazine out. Now I mentioned we'd take a closer look at the mags. This is the Simson mag. This is a standard Luger magazine, both in 9 Parabellum. And looking at them, they're almost actually interchangeable. The only two things that appear to have been done to the Simson magazine are to just slightly flatten down the loading button here, and that actually might just be a tolerance or a dimensioning thing. This magazine doesn't quite fit in the Simson because this button's checkering is just slightly too tall. And then the more significant difference is they cut out a notch at the base of the magazine here, which isn't on a standard Luger mag, and that's simply to accommodate the heel catch. You can see that this Simson mag still has the locking cutout that it would have used in a Luger, and in fact, the Simson mag will fit and function in a Luger. So if you had a Luger magazine, it would be a pretty simple thing to convert it. In fact, disassembly is really one of the very slick features of the Simson pistol. This is our disassembly lever, and it simply is a spring-loaded lug that holds the slide in place. So we'll make sure it's empty, and then you want to make sure that the striker is released, so I'm going to dry fire it. Now, all I have to do is push that lug in. You can see the barrel popped slightly forward under spring tension, and then the whole barrel, the whole slide and barrel assembly comes right off the top of the gun. That's all there is to it. The frame here really, it doesn't do a whole lot. We've got our trigger mechanism. This block is what holds the striker spring in place. So if you try and disassemble this with the striker cocked, you're going to have a really compressed striker spring here, and it's going to just pop out the back of the slide and go who knows where when you take the slide off. So make sure it's dropped first, then you can disassemble it. That right here is the disassembly lug. Now the slide assembly is also pretty simple. We've got our striker. Right here. So firing pin, that's kind of a long firing pin. That might have been a bit fragile. And then the striker spring. You can see it's all kinked up. Clearly a bunch of people have disassembled this gun when it was cocked, either not knowing or forgetting about that detail. The sights are actually pretty small. The front sight's good, the rear notch is pretty darn tiny. More importantly, we have actually a pretty interesting take on the captive recoil system here. So this recoil spring is captive. When you take the gun apart, it stays in there. However, the recoil guide, the spring guide, just slides backwards out like this. And as soon as it clears all the way back out, this spring's going to kind of kink up. If I can keep it kind of in control. There's the spring guide, and then the spring itself kind of does that. Is a lot longer than the space that it has to occupy. Once the spring and the guide are out, then the barrel just drops right out. So the barrel here has kind of a collar at the back end, so the spring goes in and then stops, and your spring guide rod goes right in there. And here's the rest of the slide. Breech face, extractor on the top. That's about all there is to it. The slide's main function in a blowback pistol like this is simply to add mass to the system so that it doesn't open when there's too much pressure in the barrel. Ultimately, of course, the German military wouldn't have adopted a blowback 9mm, and it's kind of a moot point because they decided not to put any money into this project in the 1920s anyway. So only a handful of these Simson pistols were ever made, and they ended up disappearing pretty much just as quickly as they were manufactured. So it's even quicker to reassemble than it was to disassemble. Once you've got the barrel and the spring back in place, or if you didn't take them out in the first place, then all you have to do is drop the slide into its rails like this, rack it back, and frankly, just like a modern pistol, you are all set to go. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. As with everything here, this is coming up for sale at the end of April, so if you would be interested in adding it to your own personal collection, and hey, you know, it's got really cool script on it, really neat experimental design, who wouldn't want it? Well, check the description text below. You'll find a link to Rock Island's catalog page on the pistol. You can take a look at their pictures and their description and place a bid right there online if you're so inclined. Thanks for watching.